Right, in this tutorial we're going to look at the acacia tree, and it almost begs to have some animals included around it: giraffes, elephants, lions, whatever. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that in a minute. But I promised you earlier that I was going to have a look at masking fluid. Right, now you can put this on with a variety of implements. This is a very cheap paintbrush that I would tend to use. You could use a dip pen, for example. You can dip it in and draw very thin lines. If you want a variety of lines, then you could use a mapping pen like this, which has an adjustable wheel on it, so it opens out. I don't know whether you can see that. You can see that opens out or closes up to different widths of lines. And here's my personal favourite, which is a piece of balsa wood which I've sharpened. I'll put it there. I've sharpened to a point. So what I've done here is a drawing of the acacia tree's branches and trunk, a few more in the background, and a herd of elephants in the middle distance, not to be the dominant part of the picture. That's going to be the tree, but to support the picture and add extra interest over here. Although this photograph looks like it's all legs and trunk and ears, in fact when you break it down into simple shapes, what you've got there is a simple oval. You've got a figure of 8 here for the face, an oblong for the trunk, a couple of oblongs for the legs, and a couple of diamond shapes for the ears. And notice what we've got at the back here is just a whole series of half ovals. You don't have to paint elephants, because the viewer's eye will say elephant, elephant, elephant. Ah, these shapes must also be elephants. Right, now what I'm going to use is this brush to just paint on like that along the trunk, just to do some of these thinner twigs and branches up here, is to just use the pointed bit of balsa wood that I showed you before, and then I'll also reserve the elephants, the shape of the elephants. Right, I'm going to use the sponge for the foliage a little later on. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'll do some foliage with that in the distant trees, and for the most part I'm going to use the number 10 round brush. And the colours I'm going to use, I'm going to stick with 3 this time. I'm going to use ultramarine blue, permanent rose and raw sienna. Now you can see the beauty already of this as I can sweep straight across the tree without ruining any, and the elephants for that matter, without ruining them. Right, I've lightened that now, and I'm going to bring in this wash of ultramarine blue that I'm going to start at the top here. A little bit of permanent rose there, a bit more yellow raw sienna, and I'll just bring that into the foreground a bit more before it dries off completely. What I'll now do is pick up a bit of that permanent rose with the ultramarine blue. There'll just be enough moisture left in the paper to allow that just to very, very gently blend, I hope. I add in some of this raw sienna and permanent rose mix. We've got ourselves a very pale bluey sort of grey. There's the purple again reappearing, and all I've done is just dabbed it on here and there in the distance, just to represent a few sparse little trees in the distance. Right, just going to take a fairly pale wash, you can see how pale that is, of that blue, and I'm just going to streak that across the water hole just there like that. It's going to be fairly flat and unruffled. You don't want African water holes, you don't normally have waves crashing onto the bank. Right, now you can see I'm just stabbing on here this sort of flat umbrella shape, but not too strong, and I'm doing no more than just giving an impression of these branches as they go into the higher part of the tree. And you can see how that shadow has already helped to turn the sunlight on. Right, now you can see I've removed the masking fluid from these rocks, I've removed it from the tree, taken it from the elephants, and also these little bits and pieces and blobs are put around the side of the water hole. Now you can see that I'm just using the flat brush just to stab on colour here and there, and not worrying about going over all the tree, because as I say, some of this will be covered in foliage anyway. I'm just not painting all of it because I want it to give the impression that a lot of it's in sunlight, so we'll perhaps have some shadows here and there coming across the trunk like that. I'm painting the shape of each part of the elephant with the round brush. Even though this is a number 10 brush, it's still got a good point on it so that it traces the outline of the elephant. Here we've got the baby elephant and its front of its head and the trunk swinging round like that. There's the other big ear. The baby elephants are beautiful. They really are like little sort of Dumbos, aren't they, with the great big ears. You could almost, when they flap them, you can almost see them taking off. So there we are, we've got three shapes here that look passably like elephants. So the eye will fill in the rest of these shapes in the distance as more elephants following up behind. Right, now for the foliage, I've made two mixes. One is a fairly strong mix of raw sienna with a little bit of ultramarine blue just to green it a bit, and then the same two colours but much more blue, and I brought in a little bit of permanent rose just to grey it down a bit. It's still appreciably green. It might not look so on the TV screen, but it is a greeny grey. We're going to splash it on, just press it on quite confidently. Okay, I'm going to go in now into the darker green. Now I've deliberately taken that over because it sort of provides a little bit of a canopy and helps to frame the elephants who are sort of coming into the picture. And then while we're at it, we can emphasize the strength of the shadows and the lights and darks of the tree by just bringing some of that in. Right, I'm just going to add a hint of the shadow from the tree, just a hint that side, as we said previously, to reflect the fact that the tree is going to cast shadow from this direction as well as from the right hand side. What I've done now, just to finish off, is I've put a streak of raw sienna and permanent rose in the middle distance here, just to warm the ground up there, which I thought was a little bit lacking in something. I've used the same colour here plus a little bit of ultramarine blue to create a bit of shadow and interest in this area here. I've put some extra shadow on the back of these rocks to give them a little bit more definition. You notice I've not painted the tree trunks here, which gives quite a nice effective impression of the dust carrying on just up in the air around here. And that's it really. There we are. We've got the acacia tree on location.